objected was listening especially hard to his heart, as well as to the words he had heard from the other board members through that long discussion. The board member who opposed opening the church to the people of color finally replied, "Okay, Jim, the purpose of this church is to get a hold of people like me and change them." The First Unitarian Society of Chicago successfully desegregated. There are things that you know, and there are things that I know, and when we are together and listening to each other with hearts and ears, we know more. The end.
We now enter into a time of meditation, followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life. So take this moment to settle in, to feel the earth beneath you, to feel the air that comes into your lungs and out of your lungs, and in and out. And I invite you into this loving kindness meditation. Imagine yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be well. Imagine someone you love. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from suffering. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be well. Imagine someone you feel neutral about. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from suffering. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be well. Imagine someone you have very difficult feelings about. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from suffering. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be well. Imagine all beings on earth. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from suffering. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be well.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Jeremy Cannon, and I am pleased to serve as your worship associate today. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, and bodies here. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome all the people watching online as we live stream this service. Hello. We especially welcome guests joining us today. If you are a visiting guest, we invite you to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plates that will come around in a few minutes. Please join us for a social hour after the service across the hall in the Leanhouse Common Room. And some accessibility notes: you can find hearing assist devices and large print hymnals in the back and orders of service at the back of the sanctuary, as well as worship activity bags for children and anyone who wants them. There is a fragrance-free area over here. If you're watching online, you can enable YouTube's closed captioning on your viewing device. We have a special announcement for today. Do you love to cook? Here's your chance. First Church is providing and serving dinner at the guest house on Saturday, February 17th, and is in need of folks to provide chicken pot pie. There's a recipe that's provided, salad, or your favorite cupcakes. We also need a few people to serve food. If you are interested, sign up at the social justice table on Sundays during the coffee hour, or contact Elizabeth Lentini. I can help you get her contact info. Now, I welcome you to share in our First Church worship and purpose by inviting you to join me in a unison affirmation of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Every week we have an opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledge cash in our offering plate with a community organization practicing our value of interdependence. Today, we share the plate with Worthy Now Prison Ministry Network. I invite all children, youth, and RE volunteers to sing the first verse of the hymn and then follow Reverend Kimberly to the Leanhouse Common Room down the stairs for religious education. If your child needs to check in for RE, please accompany them to the Common Room now. We'll sing the hymn while seated for the offering collection. The offering will now be gratefully received. May the practice of giving bring us joy, as together we sing our children's processional hymn, number 1018 in the teal hymnal, Come and Go With Me. As a child growing up, news and politics were ever present in our household. Dinner often featured the talking heads of countering political speech, providing the background chorus while my dad would aptly fork his food with his right hand and flip the newspaper with his left. My parents may be liberal, but whereas my mom is the idealistic conveyor of her truth, my dad was very much the pragmatist. As a teenager who naturally thought I had figured out just how clearly right my worldview was, I would proudly come home and proclaim my perspectives on the latest cultural values and controversies. How could those other people not see how clearly wrong they are, I would say. But my dad was not an echo chamber. Rather, he fostered a relationship of debate in which he enjoyed playing the devil's advocate in our house. The harder my stance, the more fervent his response conveying the viewpoint of the other. My dad is the kind of guy who loved touring the state fair's political booths. He would walk up to the booths that he agreed with and present a well-thought-out representation of the alternate view, challenging the assumptions that formed that booth's basis. But at the booths he opposed, his tone would soften and his ears would open. He listened more than he spoke, exploring that which went unsaid and searching for their core foundations. Dad, stop embarrassing me, I'd say. But as I grew, I came to recognize how impactful these demonstrations to how I engage those I both agree and disagree with would be. The debates my dad and I had saw hours spent exploring the convictions of the various points of view, creating one of the greatest gifts my father ever gave to me in the form of a trifecta of lessons. He taught me how to challenge my perspective, define my faults and contradictions, and there were many. I could learn from those other viewpoints to color in the blind spots of my own. For instance, with the topic of abortion, I've been challenged to look beyond the black and white binary of fetal development, where the transition of a zygote to an embryo to a fetus creates a situation where a clear dividing line in prenatal development is definitely difficult to define. He taught me how to form a convincing argument. How could I help change or challenge someone else's viewpoint if I didn't authentically understand their motivations and desires? I found myself constantly building cognitive straw men and bashing them with pride, only to never find a real person that fit that simplistic caricature. Listening to my monologue and those of others who generally agreed with me only amplified my echo chamber. Again, on abortion, I would make broad assumptions of power-hungry theocrats. But I learned that during a debate, if I stepped the conversation back far enough, an opponent and I would find ourselves sharing many of the same core beliefs, viewing ourselves in similar light, which would then provide a foundation to go back forward again to confront the individual divergent opinions between us, free of assumptions. But these opposing perspectives would often be unmoved and sometimes even strengthened by my counterpoints. In my judgmental disregard of someone's opposing view of a topic, I would find myself burning the possible bridges of common connection on other topics, community unrealized. So the final lesson in these debates that my dad taught me, and I would argue the most important and impactful, was how to dig deeper and engage with those various individuals to acknowledge the vast common ground between me and those I would brand as the opposing others. Although I may not move a pro-life supporter to accept abortion, for instance, our shared concern with the well-being of healthy families and prevention of unwanted pregnancy was often a very strong foundation to discuss the benefits of effective sex ed for youth and universal advocacy of contraception. These quests for threads of commonality that we share, often taken for granted, have manifested for me the greatest potential for partnership and change.
First Church, it is good to be with you today. Thank you, Jeremy, for your story, and thank you, choir, for that beautiful anthem. Who is included in your vision for the future? Who is not included? 15 years ago, I had the great pleasure of being part of a workshop with the Harlem Gospel Choir. At the time, I directed a predominantly white college choir, and my students wanted to learn the tips and tricks to perform songs from the Black gospel tradition with an authentic sound. The lead educator from the group paused and responded. "First," she said, "everyone here has a master's degree in vocal performance from prestigious conservatories." That made some sense to me. It's really hard to sound great if you don't know how to sing. Then she said, "Please understand that all of us have been singing this repertoire our whole lives." That made sense to me too. You can't fake the 10,000 hours to get to excellence. But then she said something that still sticks with me. The most important thing, of course, is that we believe what we're singing. In our bones, we give thanks to God for the blessing of praising His holy name with our voices. Ah, right. That one caught me. In that moment, I saw the difference between academic tourism and authenticity. Are you dabbling at this, or is this central to who you are? Do you know in your bones that what you are saying is real and true? This month we're thinking about justice and equity, and this Sunday we're discussing our vision for the future. When we gather here together in community, we're working towards something, some vision for the future, and that vision surely has something to do with justice and equity. So I ask you, what is your vision for a just and equitable future? There's a term that folks like to use a lot in Unitarian Universalist circles when we talk about such a vision: beloved community. For example, in our denominational work toward an eighth principle, Dr. Paula Cole-Jones and others define the term like this: beloved community happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, abilities, sexual orientation, backgrounds, and identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care that seeks to realize justice within the community and in the broader world. That sounds like a perfect Unitarian Universalist vision for the future. It's a circle wide enough to include everyone, working interdependently, centering love to realize justice. I think I'm done here. Okay, well, I should add this. The term beloved community entered the popular lexicon through Reverend Drs. Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King didn't think of beloved community as some imaginary utopia where lions and lambs dwell together. It was, and I'm quoting, a realistic, achievable goal that could be attained by a critical mass of people committed to and trained in the philosophy and methods of nonviolence. King didn't imagine for a second that there wouldn't be conflict. Of course there's conflict. Only that we all together make a mutual, determined commitment to nonviolence. Nothing but peace is enough. It's amazing, really, that Dr. King could hold on to that commitment when so many people were so aggressively and violently threatening him every day. From where could Dr. King draw so much spiritual strength? Well, he believed that the way to this process of beloved community was through agape love, which he described as the love of God operating in the human heart. Agape is a Greek word from Christian theology, and I bring this up because I want to name the risk in claiming Dr. King's vision without claiming his faith. The risk in claiming his vision without claiming his faith. Martin Luther King was an ordained minister in the Baptist Church. Reverend Dr. King drew deep strength from a firm belief in God's love. And there's a difference in trying to enact the practices of beloved community as a curious seeker and enacting the practices because you know with every fiber of your being that God desires ever-flowing streams of justice. Do you feel that? The difference. In other words, as that educator in the Harlem Gospel Choir said, the most important thing is that we believe what we're singing. You use are and have always been a questioning people, and for that I am deeply grateful. But without that something in your bones to hold on to, it is hard to stay the course in the storm. It is hard to stay focused on the work when it gets difficult, unpopular, or dangerous. When we took that moment just a moment ago to imagine our just and equitable futures, we might have imagined a list of things that we want to see in that future. Ecological sustainability, or enough food for everyone, or restorative justice. But remember that the term beloved community is a process, not a way of being. It's not a set of achievable goals. If nothing else, one of the immediate problems of thinking about your hoped for and bespoke future as a set of achievable items is that your vision and my vision won't align. Your vision probably includes cats, and I'm allergic to cats. I like them, they just make me sneeze. But jokes aside, let me ask you the hard question. Where do all the folks that think differently than you go in your dreamed for future? Who is included in your vision for the future, and who's excluded? The activist and writer Adrienne Marie Brown writes, when we imagine the world we want to shift towards, are we dreaming of being the winners of the future? Or are we dreaming of a world where winning is no longer necessary because there are no enemies? Do you dream of defeating the 70 to 80 million people who vote differently than you? Or are you imagining a world where we stop treating one another as opponents? This may be the hardest part of Unitarian Universalism. If we accept that everyone is fully worthy and we see ourselves as inextricably linked one to another in this web of existence, how are we supposed to sit with folks who hate us or with folks who we hate? If I am an Israeli citizen and my sister is murdered in the Hamas attack on October 7th, I have no difficulty imagining how I would ball my hand into a fist and seek vengeance. On a personal level, so mad that my sister was murdered, but I would also feel rage at an organization dedicated to the destruction of my people. And if I'm a Palestinian citizen and I had to flee my home with my wife and son to avoid bombings, and then I settle into a refugee camp where I'm barely surviving, and then my son is murdered in a bombing as collateral damage, I have no difficulty in imagining how I would ball my hand into a fist and seek vengeance. On a personal level, I would be so mad that my own child was murdered, but I would also feel so much rage toward a horrifying war against my people. If I spend enough time thinking about any one person's experience, I can feel the urge for vengeance. It's an evolutionary programmed desire to respond tit for tat, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Beloved community, the commitment from everyone to nonviolence and collaborative work, that seems crazy and foolish and a dream. And yet, you and I, we've also known some measure of love, some touch of grace, some unexpected compassion in our own lives. I can see that we're not going to walk the path of beloved community with balled fists. Beloved community, by definition, only happens after we all learn to open our palms. I'm not there yet. Let me tell you how not there I am. Yesterday, I finished this sermon, and I went out to the grocery store, and there's that guy in the center of the aisle who turns his cart to ponder the cereal, creating a traffic jam in both directions, as if for the first time realizing that Fruity O's and Fruit Loops are the same cereal. And no one can move. And for a moment, I had this thought that maybe we're wrong about universal salvation. Maybe this man's going to hell. So no, I do not have agape love for everyone yet. And I don't think I'm alone in this room with that. Oh, I see in myself and in you love and compassion for others, but I want to take this moment to acknowledge in myself and in everyone else our capacity for anger and vengeance. For today, at least, I'm trying to foster curiosity, knowing that it could lead to compassion. So with whoever I am most mad at on any given day, my spiritual practice this year is to meditate until I arrive at curiosity. I tried that loving kindness meditation that we just did. Ideally, I want to arrive at some deep compassion. But for today, I'll settle for curiosity if it can move me away from anger. For example, I want to move from what is wrong with you? And I want to move to what happened to you? But then I ask myself if that's not condescending. What happened to you? And I want to move to a compassionate stance. How can I help you? And then I want to make sure that I'm not being condescending. How can I help you? And move into something like, how can you and I co-create something better? My fellow realists in this room, I know that this sounds crazy and foolish and a dream. Nonviolent cooperative process is just not how the world works right now. There are millions of people who vote to take away your right to medical care, or to say that you don't have a right to love who you love, or who deny your authentic gender. There are folks that have a difficult time saying out loud that maybe America has some unresolved issues with racism. So if we are lacking an imagination where we can all work together nonviolently, all sitting at the table, no winners or losers, it's because we don't see it. But I'm inspired by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone, who in their book, Active Hope, remind us. They remind us there were abolitionists in the 1700s who said, I know this sounds crazy, and I understand that the entire economies of the colonies in Europe hinge upon the enslavement of millions of people, but we think there's a better way. And they were called crazy and foolish and dreamers until they weren't. Remember that there were advocates fighting for women to have the right to vote in the 19th century, and they were called crazy and foolish and dreamers until they weren't. Remember that there were advocates fighting for children with cognitive or physical differences to have the basic right to go to public school 60 years ago, and they were called crazy and foolish and dreamers until they weren't. I mean, sometimes we are trying to imagine something that is already happening everywhere else. In America, we can't imagine a better way to handle crime than to imprison millions of our fellow citizens, but other countries have already figured out a better way. It always seems crazy and foolish and a dream. until it isn't. Thank goodness we have some teachers who have shown us how to do the work. Thich Nhat Hanh was a Buddhist monk in Vietnam who was watching his nation tear itself in two. But he didn't pick a side. Rather, rooted in his Buddhist spiritual practices, he saw everyone as a sibling. And he launched a very dangerous campaign simply called, "Don't Shoot Your Brother." Because of his spiritual practice, he was solid as a mountain, firm as the earth. He was free. Han practiced a revolutionary, radical compassion in the face of danger. And it was crazy, and it was foolish, and it was a dream. Until it wasn't. Reverend Dr. King was a Baptist minister in the Jim Crow South who watched his nation dehumanizing itself. Somehow, he didn't pick sides. Rooted in his Christian agape love, he saw everyone as a sibling and launched a dangerous campaign to restore the soul of the nation through his civil rights work. Because of his spiritual practice, King could look to the mountains from whence came his help. In the midst of very real danger, King practiced a revolutionary, radical compassion, and it was crazy and foolish, and famously, a dream. Until it wasn't. Thich Nhat Hanh and Reverend Dr. King, these were collaborators in this kind of work, this process of beloved community. They had different spiritual traditions, they lived different experiences, they grew up singing different songs. But they agreed that the only way forward was through radical compassion. I look at my hands, and I realize they've mostly only known how to ball into fists. A fighting spirit keeps us alive in a fighting world, yes? I know that if I open my palms, I risk a lot. And of course, I want to acknowledge that what I risk in this body is so much less than what folks in marginalized identities risk. But any of us who open our palms risk. We risk being a chump. We risk getting hurt. Perhaps most of all, we risk letting go of our sense of control over this world. But I know this, I will never sing like the Harlem Gospel Choir by learning a few tips and tricks. If I want to live in a world with less vengeance and more peace, I'm going to have to start believing that this is possible. I know that I will never flourish in this life, never play a part in leaving the world a little bit more compassionate when my time ends, if I keep my fists balled up. And friends, I am certain that we will not arrive at a more peaceful, just, and equitable world until we all take that risk and open our palms to one another. May we have the humility to let go of our bespoke visions of the future, the courage to orient our work toward the process of open-palmed justice-seeking. And may we have that compassionate love for the interdependence of all beings, without which our work will be in vain. May it be so. First Church, remember, nothing but peace is enough. So let us lift our eyes to the hills and answer this call of love, knowing, believing in our bones that there is always, always more love somewhere. Will you please rise and body your spirit for our recessional hymn 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.